honoring this invite and, joining us today. We have Kenya Private Schools chairman and the fraternity, the board and the team. We have Solomon Munene, who is the national vice chairman, who is present here. Thank you very much for partnering with us and being part of Nation Media Group's event. Good morning, all protocols observed. Good morning. Great. So it's a wonderful day today to have discussions, and this is the second time that we are having Private Schools Conference and Expo, whose key role and key mandate is really to look at areas of opportunity and how we can be able to, enhance, support, and really build what our government is doing. The theme today, this being the second edition, is empowering future leaders. As a media house, we exist to really transform, impact, and positively influence society. That's why Nation Media Group exists. So what we are doing today with the theme of empowering future leaders through education really sits at the heart and at the principal values of NMG. The second edition of Kenya Private School Fair serves as a platform to really bring together stakeholders within the education fraternity and schools largely, early childhood, primary schools, secondary schools, parents, students, and all stakeholders to have a conversation and have a robust exchange of ideas on best practices and real opportunities that can really solve the challenges that are there in our society. The real reason why education sector is even, going through some reorganization or sharpening is really to address the challenges that are there in our society. And so this is part of those platforms that we have as a media house to really offer a chance for those discussions to go on. A key opportunity that is always there is the linkage between industry and academia is really critical and quite important. And Nation Media Group being part of industry, we have a role to really bring this information out there so that we can challenge and share what are these great things that are going on within our society. We'll still continue, challenging even with this new program of CBC. Can we have a lot more engagement with the private sector so that then there are practical address of solutions that are there in our society? This event is a unique, offers private schools also an opportunity to showcase what they have to, offer. There are various aspects of talent, not just the learning only, but also sharpen talent, but also bring out the diverse ideas in terms of, innovations around the education sector. Today we have great partners that are here, and I encourage our viewers out there to really make a point of just coming in to explore and see what we are showcasing. We have Minister of Education, who represents really the government and explaining a lot more. We'll be listening to our chief guest, and I'm sure he'll delve a lot more on what is really going on. The government has real great interest to make sure that we are sharpening the knowledge and we are solving the future needs that are there in our society. Sometimes we talk about, unemployment, but also what are we doing to really solve that? CBC is really fitting in to sharpen that and solve some of those challenges. I am a parent of a child who's going through children who are going through CBC now. And when you see the questions that they're asking today, when you see the kind of engagements that they're having today, there's something interesting that is going on there. As industry, we should actually be rushing there to see how do we support, how do we complement, how do we build, the future journalists at a very young age so that we don't just wait until, that long time that someone has finished high school or university, then we start, engaging at that point in time. So ours is really to ensure that we support. And I was just going to mention the partners that we have here, and we truly value the partners that we have here. Kenya Private Schools Association, truly appreciate the support that we are getting. And we have Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, again to really showcase a lot more, delve a lot more into details. We have over 16 schools that are exhibiting here, and you can see, what they have. They are financial institutions speaking to really financing, and schools will be opening very soon. how do we finance? How do we support? There are financial institutions that are even giving scholarships, you know. So we should be able to just engage and see. Specifically, I see here, they have a lot to showcase in terms of education policies. What does that mean to us? EdTech, they are stationary partners. We can see Stedler there. And social mentorship, you know, support partners who are here. So this is great. Ours is to really ensure that we showcase this and we continue offering this platform so that we can all learn together. With those few remarks, I would like to thank you very much. And Brian, over to you. Thank you.
Appreciated. A better round of applause for him, kindly. Thank you very much. That's Mr. James Sogoti. James Sogoti, the General Manager for Commercial at the Nation Media Group. Every so often when I do events for this great organization, I must remind people that I give him his time because he's the one who pays me every end of the month. Therefore, I give him the time that he requires. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, because it has really come out very clearly that government in this year is very keen on education. You look at the budget that was that has been the first budget by the Kenya Kwanza government. Education really won big as far as allocation for finances is concerned. We are talking about figures to the level of 568.8 billion shillings in the first financial year for the Kenya Kwanza government, just going to show how much the government is keen and is big on this particular sector. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me at this point to also bring on board the gentleman who will be giving the keynote address on behalf of the Ministry of Education, and that is none other than Dr. Elias Abdi, who's the Director General for Basic Education. A round of applause for him.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you. The General Manager, Nation Media Group, in charge of commercial services, the Chairperson, Kenya Private Schools Association, school proprietors who are here today, head teachers, principals, publishers, teachers, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Well, it gives me great pleasure to be here today to preside over the second Private Schools Expo and Conference. This two-day event brings together a wide array of stakeholders, including proprietors, principals, head teachers, publishers, teachers, and parents. The theme of today's conference is empowering future leaders. And indeed, our young ones are our future leaders. They'll be the people to replace us as we exit the scene. So it's encouraging that you chose this particular theme. This theme is very appropriate for the occasion and provides an excellent opportunity for value addition through the interaction and exchange of experiences. This is in line with the competence-based curriculum, whose vision is to have an engaged, empowered, and ethical citizens through nurturing every learner's potential. We in the education sector, specifically in the Ministry of Education, as the officials and our teachers, we believe that every learner has a potential. So it's our responsibility to ensure that we exploit the potential of our children by bringing it out. So in other words, what we are saying is there's no child who's a failure. It is at times us, the adults, who fail to tap the potential of our children. So that is very important. The competence-based curriculum, which the country rolled out in the year 2017, equips with our learners with the 21st century skills of innovation, critical thinking, and problem solving that are globally competitive. I know here in Kenya, the Kenyan society, for some time, we have been debating about what this competence-based curriculum is and so on. But all we want to say and we want to assure the country is that the knowledge that was taught even in the previous system is still there in the competence-based curriculum. The content that's there in mathematics, in English, that was there even under the 844 is still there. Take, for example, mathematics. We keep on saying the topics are there. We still have equations. Quadratic equations are there, simultaneous equations. The content is there. But what is different in this is that we have infused the soft skills under the CPC, what we are now calling the 21st century skills, so that we can have graduates of a system that are able, when they exit or they come out of the system, they're able to be leaders. They're able to face challenges in society. They're able to be problem solvers. People who do not wait to be employed, but at the end of it, will even create employment. That is the intention of the CPC. As to whether it will achieve or not, in the education sector, especially people ask people of curriculum, we say, let the curriculum go the full, throttle. Let it, for example, we've started with PP1, it goes up to senior school, grade 12, and then we will evaluate. When we evaluate, then we'll see whether the curriculum has served the purpose or not. So, the Ministry of Education is committed to providing, promoting, and coordinating the delivery of quality, relevant, and inclusive education, training, and research, as well as enhancing STEM into national production systems for sustainable development. So for us, in the education sector, we say there are particular areas we concentrate on within the education sector. For example, it is the responsibility of government globally to ensure that education is provided to its citizens. We say education is a public good. It is not a private good. That's why it is the responsibility of government to do that. And if you look at our Constitution, Article 53, which talks of the rights of children, we say basic education is free and compulsory. Compulsory in the sense that it is the responsibility of government to even ensure that children attend school at the right age. And in that respect, as government, we're in the business of regulating and ensuring that even we use some element of force, because it's about the life of these children. For once, those of us, those of you who could be maybe seated here, listening to this, or watching us through NTV, imagine if you are not able to read and write today, where would you be? We say that basic education is free and it's also compulsory because it makes the human being functional. Without the knowledge of reading and writing, the human being cannot participate in the productive sector of the economy. And that's why basic education has been made free and compulsory. Right from 1948, when the world was formed in the UN, they declared what we call the rights, the universal rights of the human being. At that time, it was also declared that basic education should be free and compulsory. But that statement also had a rider that we should avail tertiary education, university education, we avail it, availability. It should be availed. But for this one, basic education, compulsory. It's all states, that's what we are doing. This is undertaken while ensuring high rates of access. Ensuring that, we have schools. Access usually is the quantity part of education. We avail schools and children enroll. And that's the time we talk about how many students are in school. That's access. How many teachers have we employed? Those are numbers. But you see, the other important thing of education is what takes place in the classroom. It is one thing to take children to school, but it's also another thing to ensure learning goes on, the four walls of a classroom. And that's why now the aspect of quality and relevance of education come in handy. We don't just take children to school, but we also retain them in school so they don't drop out. And this is why now issues to do with scholarships in form of fee paying, ensuring that children are mentored so that they don't drop out. Retention aspect we address. Transition from one level to another, from pre-primary to primary, from primary to junior, from junior to senior, up to university, and also ensuring that they complete for all learners at basic education level. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Education is implementing the CPC curriculum with the pioneer cohort currently at grade 7, expected to transit to senior school in 2026 after completing grade 9. So, I know as we congregate here with those colleagues from the private sector, our private schools, we are all preparing, to open the schools on the 8th of January. And as we prepare the pioneer class now of the junior school, those of you who are keen in reading the Presidential Working Party report, it's no longer junior secondary school, it is junior school now. Junior school, the first cohort in this country, in the history of this country, will be, especially those pursuing the national curriculum, will be in grade 8 on the 8th of January. So these learners at the junior level are exposed to a broad-based curriculum to enable them to explore their abilities and potential as a basis for choosing subjects according to career pathways of interest later at the senior level. So initially, when we started the CPC, at the junior school, actually the total number of subjects were 14. Following the Presidential Working Party report release, they have now been scaled down to 9 subjects. So what have we done? There was some content trimming, there were some mergers of knowledge here and there, and very soon the ministry will be able to release the circular that will guide the schools as they open on the 8th of January next year. It is therefore imperative, ladies and gentlemen, for learners at this level to undergo a rigorous career guidance to enable them make informed choices as they transit to senior school. Because senior school, remember, we are saying the slogan of this curriculum is nurturing every person's or every learner's potential. That's why at senior school we have 3 pathways. That of, the sports pathway, what we are calling, and then also the STEM, the social science pathway, and therefore we believe every child will be able to pursue his or her potential. Accordingly, junior school education is significant in shaping students' academic, social, and personal development, since learners are given a solid academic foundation in various subjects in the broad curriculum. This education phase helps learners to develop important skills such as time management, organization, as well as adapting to new environments. It prepares them for the increased independence and academic demands they will face in senior school and beyond. And that's why we have given them a broad curriculum so that they're able to really gauge their potential and they pursue their potential. Unlike the way the 844 is. 844, you're doing so many subjects. If you fail the sciences, it's like you are doomed in terms of your career. So here, in secondary school, they will pursue, if they're humanities, you go for your humanities. If it's language and literature, you do the same. If it is talent-based, performing arts, visual arts, you pursue. If it is STEM, pure sciences, applied sciences, you pursue your areas. Technical and engineering, you do it in senior school. Junior school is a crucial stage for social and emotional development, and it provides learners with opportunities to interact with peers from diverse backgrounds and develop important social skills such as teamwork, collaboration, conflict, and conflict resolution. Remember, this curriculum emphasizes soft skills. Those are the educators like us, where we talk of soft skills and hard skills. Hard skills is the knowledge the person goes to when you train. For example, if you are an architect or a civil engineer or say a mathematician, the knowledge of maths, that is the hard skills. But the soft skills are usually more demanding to impart in a learner. How you relate with others, how you communicate, interpersonal skills, problem solving, creativity. They don't just come anyhow like that. And it's one of the most demanding, areas a teacher is able to teach, because they don't follow a certain path. For example, the natural scientists, a doctor, for example, you say the doctor, if maybe you are suffering from malaria, the doctor will just maybe test your blood. If you are positive, you prescribe specific, medicine in terms of grams, and that's it. Natural science, it is treated once you take the medicine. But how do you teach interpersonal skills, for example? How do you teach, communication, collaboration with others, creativity? Very demanding. And this is what this system is inculcating within, itself, within the CPC. That's what we are inculcating. Learners also begin to explore their own identities. They build relationships and develop a sense of belonging within a larger community. Moreover, junior school education provides a platform for learners to explore interests, talents, and passion through participation in co-curricular activities, clubs, sports, and other hobbies that contribute to their personal growth and self-discovery. For the first time next year, the way we have been conducting our competitions for co-curriculum for primary and secondary education, for the first time next year, junior school will also have their own stand-alone competition in ball games, in sports, in athletics, right from the sub-county, county, up to the national level. So the ministry has already released the calendar for that. So these experiences help learners to develop their talents, build confidence, and discover strengths and areas of interest beyond academics. Additionally, junior school level, through teachers who are facilitators, encourage learners to take more responsibility for their learning and personal development. Learners are expected to manage their time, complete assignments, and meet academic expectations with less direct supervision. If you were to walk to one of our classrooms, it is not the talk and chalk teacher. The teachers in CBC are seen as facilitators. Even the sitting arrangement is completely different. These are people we believe, when they graduate out of the system, they'll be able, to work without less supervision. Because generally, curriculum is dynamic. As society evolves, curriculum must also evolve. Curriculum changes with the change in society. When there are challenges in society, people tend to point finger at the curriculum. If there are challenges, for example, in drug abuse, issues to do with moral values in society, people start asking about what we teach our young ones. And that's why curriculum evolves and keeps on being reviewed as per the standards, the UNESCO standards. After every 5 years, curriculum needs to be relooked at, reviewed, or reformed. This increased independence fosters of these learners self-discipline, self-motivation, and a sense of personal accountability. You will realize that I'm doing so much on the junior school, because that's our pioneer class, and we have a lot of expectation in them. The system also offers career exploration opportunities and guidance to help learners develop their future careers and provide support services to address the diverse needs of learners, including those with learning difficulties, disabilities, or special talents. So the system is inclusive. We take care of also our disabled children. Ladies and gentlemen, global education trends play a significant role in shaping education practice and policies around the world. Remember, Kenya is a member of the global community. So what takes place within the global community, we have to be aware. We have to also, because as a country, we have signed the conventions, we have signed treaties, including the SDGs. Competence-based education is one of the global trends focusing on developing learners' skills, knowledge, and attitudes to meet the demands of the real world. This trend aligns with the Kenyan's competence-based curriculum that was introduced in 2017. This system focuses on skills development, critical thinking, problem solving, and so on. At the same time, there's a lot of emphasis on STEM and issues to do with hands-on practical experiences. In the Kenyan context, STEM education is geared at nurturing a generation of learners with strong problem-solving abilities. This anchors well on digital literacy and technology integration. Our ambition under the CPC is to ensure that our students, 60% of them, pursue the STEM pathway. That does not mean that the humanities, the social sciences are of no value to the economy. They are of great value, but we want to strike a balance. At the moment, there are so many people opting for the social sciences. So we want people also to go for the natural sciences. So generally, Kenya has embraced or taken up global citizenship education so as to nurture learners who are globally aware, culturally sensitive, and prepared to engage as responsible global citizens in an interconnected world. The focus on the climate change mitigation through tree planting and emphasis on use of liquefied petroleum gas in school services to illustrate this commitment. Other global trends include inclusive education and lifelong learning. Inclusive education aims to provide quality education to all learners, regardless of their abilities, backgrounds, or circumstances. This trend promotes equity, diversity, equal opportunities in education in the Kenyan context, where there are diverse student populations. Ladies and gentlemen, research has constantly shown that high-quality early childhood education has long-term benefits, including improved educational outcomes, higher education and emotional well-being, and reduced achievement gaps. It is a strong foundation for life-long support and healthy brain development. So again, the emphasis on foundational learning for us is very important. So at this point, we want to really appreciate our private sector in taking up implementation of education programs in the country that calls for concerted effort by all stakeholders. As we embark on this endeavor, accurate data management is vital. This will definitely augment the allocation and monitoring of resources. The private sector plays a critical role in supplementing government efforts for provision of quality, relevant and inclusive education, while ensuring equitable access. The Private Schools Expo Conference is a clear demonstration of this. The Kenyan child. Our private schools, especially those present in this expo, have done a lot. Because as a country, we may not, the Ministry of Education alone may not be able to have all the resources to reach all the children. So the support the private sector is giving is very important. And we are also grateful to, the work the private schools are doing. For example, a number of you are exposing our learners through foreign trips. There's exchange programs. We see, for example, individual private schools bringing in even universities from the rest of the world to have, a fair within that university, within that school to expose the learners in terms of career guidance. So we really appreciate the work of our private schools. In conclusion, I wish to thank the Nation Media Group and the Kenya Private School Association for organizing this event. The impact of this interaction is bound to bear fruits across the entire education spectrum. I also take this opportunity to wish you a fruitful engagement and learning experience in the course of the remaining part of the conference. Thank you, and on behalf of my Principal Secretary, on behalf of the Ministry of Education, we wish you happy holidays and happy New Year. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki. Thank you.
Very much, Bwana DG, for that. Actually, I will request that at this juncture, we just get ourselves ready for our panel discussion engagement that is about to come up for this great conversation. Actually, you have taken us through most of whatever is bound to have been discussed. Therefore, we'll be very brief and short in that particular panel discussion. At this point in time, I will request that I do get all the mics for the remaining of the guests, who I will call up one after the other. So first up, as he has just left here, he'll just join us again at the podium and take his seat, is Dr. Elias Abdi, Director General, Basic Education. A round of applause for him. You can just take your seat right there. Then up next is Mr. Solomon Munene, who's the outgoing Vice Chairperson, Kenya Private Schools. We also have on the panel Christopher Haemba, who's the co-founder and director of Nova Pioneer. A round of applause for him as well. And also finally on the panel for this first discussion is Nula Alibai, who is the Principal, Aga Khan Academy in Mombasa. Junior School Principal, Aga Khan Academy, Mombasa. A round of applause for them. So we'll just be very brief with this engagement and this discussion, because by and large, most of everything that is bound to have been said or done has been said. This is just an addition that will be required actually of social media interaction. Be sure to interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and X now at NTV Kenya, at Brian_Mushiri, and the hashtag that we are using this time round is hashtag Private Schools Expo 2023. Private Schools Expo 2023. And I'll start directly with the representative of government, because we have had parents here, and most of the people seated here and those watching us back home are parents, and they are a very concerned lot, because and we'll have an engagement, and I'll allow you guys also to ask your genuine questions. ECBC, bwana, unatoka kazi kama mzazi, jioni unaingia kazi ingine ya kuchukua, ya mwalimu sijui alisema watoto waende shule kesho na kuku, alisema sijui kesho watu waende sijui na nini. So kindly address this concern, because now it's getting to some level of extortion. Perhaps what am I supposed to do as a parent when I get home from the Nation Media Group after an exhilarating day at job reporting national matters of interest in this country, and then my son or my daughter tells me teacher alisema tuende na kuku na ninaishi kwa flat?
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting question, and I just want to respond by saying that basically people have framed that to be a new thing, but all over, even with the previous system, there was some element of parental involvement in the learning of their children. Because under the CPC, we have kind of, made it very prominent in the sense that we are talking of parental empowerment and engagement. Those are the terminologies we're using. Because at the end of it, as a parent, you must be involved in the learning of your child. And involving yourself in the learning of the child does not mean that you only pay school fees, or you buy school uniform, or you just provide for that. But at the end of it, if you are a parent, especially a parent who has also gone to school, you must be in a position to support your child to progress academically. Because in the past, we used to say, for example, that households where, research has shown, households where parents have gone to school, where parents are educated, where parents are professional, at least their children also tend to do well in school. That is the reality of the matter. So what we are trying to say is that parents should also take their responsibility, because at the end of it, for this child to learn, it is three players: the teacher, the child, and the parent. They have to, join effort to ensure that the child learns, And so what we are trying to do under the competence-based curriculum is basically to empower the parents, to give them that responsibility, which is also part of their responsibility to ensure that their children learn, so that they are able, if they see, for example, some weakness with a child, the following day, the parent can even pick up with the teacher, you can go to school. So it's not just attending parent days. It's not just attending academic clinics. It's not just receiving a report form at the end of the day. But what we are telling our parents is to get involved yourself, parental involvement in the affairs of the child, so that we don't have parents who only wait for examination scores at the end of, the cycle, at the end of primary, at the end of secondary, you are a certain grade. So you must be also part of the process in ensuring that your children learn. So that is the intention, to ensure that parents are involved in the learning of their children, to be able to also get involved with their children, work with the schools. That is the intention. Thank you.
And that's appreciated for that particular one. And I will be coming to you after another round of questions. Just prepare yourself for the discussion on also the gap that we continue to see, because frankly speaking, we sit in Nairobi and we have schools that are just around the same class and caliber. What of that child who is in the farthest part of this country? That's a big discussion still that government also needs to clear up for us and for Kenyans. So I will be requiring you perhaps to to just say something on that in the next round of questions. But up next, let me just have a word from the private individuals in government, and not, beg your pardon, not in government, but really in the sector. And Mr. Munene, right next to DG, I'll start with you. CBC, how is it coming? Munasikia aje? What is the feeling? What is the general feeling on the ground? Because perhaps government could be operating in their own cloud.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for having me here. Thank you, Lydia. My name is...
Let me just give you this mic. Beg your pardon for that.
Okay, thank you, Brian, and thank you, Nation Media, for having us here. My name is Solomon Munene. I manage a private school in county of Kirinyaga, that is Keriwa Municipality Boarding Schools, and I'm the immediate outgoing Vice Chairman of Kenya Private Schools Association. Therefore, I think on behalf of private schools and the people on the ground, as Brad has put it right, I would say that CBC, children love CBC. CBC is practical. CBC has got a lot of practical learning activities, outdoor activities, community learning activities. It has got a lot of exposure. When they go out there, they do a lot of teamwork. And therefore, children themselves enjoy CBC because of the approach. It is involving them. And I would say that with good support and provision of relevant learning facilities, CBC can only become better and better. Thank you.
Okay, and also allow me also perhaps to get to understand from all these other players, perhaps Mr. Haemba also, on your take on CBC as we know it.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. My name is Christopher Haemba, and Director, Founder, Nova Pioneer Schools. Probably I talk about the transitions I've seen in education because I've been around quite a bit. When DG, I was a teacher, manager at the time the country transitioned from what was previously all A-level to 844. And have seen the transition now from 844 to CBC. We set up Nova Pioneer Schools here in the country in 2016. And at the time we were under 844. But the model of, learning, teaching, by student inquiry, by projects, student-centered learning. We started implementing at the time, and that's the time also the ministry then through KICD was developing CBC. And I had witnessed this CBC in other curricula as well, Cambridge and IB. There are countries and systems that went ahead of Kenya. So globally, it is not unique to Kenya. Progressive countries, and just last week I was in Germany and visited some of the schools. James talked about the linkage between industry and schools to really realize what the elements that the Director General talked about also in CBC. Germany does that a lot. And so CBC is something really that is ready for the country. And the country is great that it has embraced it. We did it late, but I think late in terms of there were countries ahead of us and the systems ahead of us that had already embraced CBC. So CBC is really the direction to go. If we don't, then you lag behind.
Okay, and perhaps let me also get to hear from the lady right next to me on your take on CBC as private sector as we know it.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yes. So the Aga Khan Academy in Mombasa, we teach the International Baccalaureate, which is very similar to the CBC. So we use an inquiry-based learning approach. It's also very competency-based. And His Highness the Aga Khan introduced the International Baccalaureate 20 years ago at our school because he recognized exactly what Dr. Abdi said. He said that we are in an ever-evolving world with the increase of globalization, the challenges in diversity and the political challenges we're coming with. We really have to prepare our children for a world that we don't even know what's going to look like by the time they come out of school. And we have to prepare them for jobs that don't even exist today. So I can hear all these challenges, and I can pretty much, I think, predict that 10, 15 years ago, our school was also facing the same challenges and the same pushback from parents as you are facing now. I think the challenge for parents is, can we maybe look at this from a bit more of a growth mindset? So we have a challenge rather than seeing it as a problem. Can we look at it as an opportunity to actually learn from it? Now, the reason you have all these projects and you have to bring things from home is because we're trying to solve real-life problems. And then we're trying to contextualize the curriculum so our children are learning about real-life problems in their communities that they will solve in the future. And that's why the parental involvement is so important, because they're the link between the school and the community. I think the other thing I think to be aware of is just to reinforce, I think the research, as Dr. Abdi also said, very clearly shows that when you have very high parental involvement in your child's education, the success of the child is also very, very high. And that's very clear. All the research out there shows us this. So the more involved parents can be, and as he said, it's not only coming for the sports day or reading your child's report, it's also parents, I think, viewing themselves as a resource for their child. So when your child's learning something in school, how can you as a parent contribute to their learning? How can you bring your traditional or cultural wisdom into that conversation? So yes, so that's my challenge for parents. And I think all the challenges you're going through, you're going to get through them as time goes on. And you will overcome them as time goes on, just as we have, and 20 years now down the road.
Now, perhaps let me also get to hear now, like I promised to, from a government's point of view, of the significant gap that we continue to see and view within the schools as we know them. Kindly just speak into the same matter.
Thank you. Well, our schools are of different levels, and the levels existed even before we rolled out the CPC. But it's just a question of what we're doing about it. Because you see, for example, the government, you have very well said in terms of funding, the education sector is the one that gets the highest, funding. And to us, government, education is a priority. That's why when, for example, in secondary school level, governments ensures that every child gets almost 22,000 Kenyan shillings in form of capitation. At the junior, when it reached at the grade 7, you remember very well that initially in primary, at the moment primary, what every child gets is 1,400 shillings in form of capitation. But in grade 7, the figure is 15,000 per child. Every child, government finances. So with that, we are ensuring that every child in this country who is a junior secondary school student gets a textbook for all the subjects they are doing. We know there are challenges, even with these rains now. We are facing situations where maybe the road network in some parts of the country has been cut off. We know some schools are being used as IDPs as a result of the flooding. We know as we plan for the 8th of January to open the schools, our EIE, Education in Emergency Desk, now has been activated. Very soon we are releasing a response plan on how to reopen the schools. so that teachers are able to travel back, learners are able to travel back and go to school. So government is doing a lot in terms of ensuring that the students, in far-flung areas get teachers, they get the teaching and learning materials, they get funds for the operations of the schools. And so we are also now coming up with modalities where there are plans to connect to schools in terms of the internet connectivity, use of technology. This is something that is being pioneered. So a lot of effort is being put into that to be able to bridge the disparity in terms of the schools that have and those that do not have, the schools in the rural and those in the urban areas. An effort is being made to that effect. Thank you.
Okay, and maybe just to hear from Mr. Munene also, because just lifting directly from the Presidential Working Party on the education reforms that did give its report to His Excellency President William Ruto this year, they were very critical and they were very large. Actually, it was like their second or third point, that we need to prioritize investing in foundational learning to assert future crises in the education. You are in the private sector. What are you doing towards this particular thing?
Thank you very much. We appreciate the fact that it's important as per the recommendation of the Presidential Working Party to prioritize on investing on foundational classes, the early years of learning, and the primary and the basic education of that particular level. At private schools, we've done a lot to ensure that we collaborate with the government efforts to ensure there is quality, there is access to education, relevance, and there is equity in education in Kenya. And we appreciate the government support. And we believe that on this subject we can do better if we engage with the government more and more as a stakeholder in education. And I want to appreciate the DG remarks and appreciating the private schools as the critical role they play on complementing the government efforts in providing education to our Kenyan children. And for that, what would ask is for us to have continue engaging and see which areas can we enhance quality of education further, which areas can we enhance access further to education, which areas can we enhance relevance and all matters of education. And we believe that one area and that we are facing as challenges in doing that is the issue of funding. And I think I would make the DG on the task force report that we have had before, like Professor George Douglas Odhiambo report, really recommended enhancement of public-private partnership. And I believe that is what was the recommendation also by the task force recently, so that we can see the areas, if we be able to enhance this public-private partnership more, can we increase access? Can we help the government maybe also improve quality of education in public schools, because you'll be able to enroll more on our side? Because, for instance, there are private schools that help a child not to walk for 10 kilometers because it is nearest private school, it is a private school. And therefore, when we talk about capitation, we are thinking that some of these students who are going to secondary schools can be accommodated also in our private secondary schools if we discuss this issue, other than having like 80 students in one class or 60 students in one class. Can we be able to have some of them go to those private secondary schools? One of the recommendations that we would also want maybe to have a dialogue on with the government, with the Minister of Education, is a proposal to create a revolving fund by Professor Douglas Odhiambo report of 2012. When that fund is created, we'll discover that quality of education will go up because private schools will be able to access funds to increase the infrastructure, the classrooms, the learning materials, and so forth. And also maybe we can look at how best can we implement CBC. I think one of the ways is to look at the CBC learning materials. Like the ICT is very critical, like the music instruments, most of them are being imported. Can we look at the customs duty on those learning materials and consider maybe lowering the tax on those materials to enable those learning materials come in the country and support the CBC implementation even at the foundational level? Thank you.
And I'll give you DG a chance to respond to that, because I can see you're eagerly waiting to respond to that.
I just wanted to add to what the chairman here said about the foundational learning. Foundational learning is comparable to the foundation of a building. If when you're putting up a building, you don't put a firm foundation, that building might end up collapsing. Initially, foundational learning, we used to call it the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetics. Now the terminology has evolved. We're talking of foundational learning. Because without foundational learning, the child will just be physically in class or even through the academic, ladder, might not perform well. What are we doing about it? Because foundational learning usually is from PP1, maybe some people say up to grade 3. Those are the early years of education. Very important in the life cycle of a child in terms of education. Why? Because if the child cannot read, write, and do numeracy at the right age, the child might not progress properly in the academic calendar. And that's why for teachers, right from the time you teach the children the alphabets, letters, from letters you move next to construction of a word, from word to doing a sentence, from a sentence to a passage, from a passage to a story. If the child does not have, the reading competencies, it is going to be difficult for a child to pursue in a proper way any career. That's why any attempt to change any education system in any country, the first plan should be to ensure your child reads well at the age of 6 years. Some studies have come up. For example, in the recent past, some 3-4 years ago, the World Bank has come up with indexes, coming up with even saying a 10-year-old who cannot read a simple text, with comprehension, is learning poor. There's a concept, learning poverty, has been introduced. So it should be the plan of any country to ensure that at what age should your child read, the parents who are listening to this. By the age of 6 years, if your child cannot read with comprehension, then there's a problem there, especially the future career of that child. Thank you.
And perhaps, okay, I know that really that was on the matter of funding. First of all, Mr. Monene brings up the issue because this report was during the period of President Mwai Kibaki. That was like in 2012. So we've certainly evolved. We have between at least 10 to 11 years. Perhaps how far are we from this? And Mr. Haemba was significantly nodding towards this issue on funding and public-private partnerships. Your take on that, Mr. Haemba, as you respond, DG. Unfortunately, now you represent government, so everyone now gets to throw a stone and, and you shield government. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And partnership between government and the private sector as far as schools are concerned can take various forms. Banatiki and I don't know by now we are grateful that KICD, when we were conceptualizing our schools, we worked closely with them and the door was open. So I think I would encourage our partnering schools within private sector from time to time to check with the KICD what they are doing and so on. And then the question of other resources, because government has huge resources which can be leveraged by private sector. And the idea of this fund, if I would support it, if government can be the rallying point, inviting other partners globally. Kenya was during the reign of Prime Minister Johnson in Britain. I think there was a conference and or a meeting that brought together global players in education, and our president then joined Johnson to rally around marshalling resources for education. I think the government can build on that and then set up this fund that is supported by private sector, global players, because education is everyone's business, and it's very attractive for certain donors to get to. And I just wanted to also make a point on the foundation learning, because we are talking about empowering the future. Those of us that have been involved in teaching kids, myself at Alliance High School, African Leadership Academy, and so on, those kids that had the advantage of starting at pre-primary foundation learning, you could see even in their abilities compared to those who didn't have that advantage. They are far ahead in terms of intellect, engagement, and so on. So it was correct for the government to mainstream, because it was not always this way. Foundation learning has just been mainstreamed now with the entire circle. So it was correct for the task force, I think, to flag it out and say we must put resources appropriately in foundation learning.
Nula, I'll also get your word on public-private partnerships as well as foundation learning, and I'll take the last round of questions from my panelists and invite any of the audiences any of individuals in the audience who might have 2 or 3 questions to just shoot towards my panelists here. Nula, your take on working with government, because private sector in the country has consistently said that at times working with government is quite hard. The wheels of government grind slower, it's quite slower to make decisions, protocol is too much. Your point of view on that?
I think there's a lot of opportunity for private sector to work with the government. I think we definitely have resources that perhaps you don't have, whether it's intellectual resource or whether it's material resource. So I think there's a lot that we can do to actually give back. I think we just have to find the right model. So what works for your individual institution that's going to work with the bureaucracy of government and still get things going. So at the Academy, we have a professional development center within the Academy where we have our teachers go out and work in public schools teaching CBC to actually train teachers in the inquiry-based learning approach. We have very good connections with both the Department of Education at county government level, but also the Ministry of Education at national level in Mombasa. And we have a good collaborative relationship with them. So we can contribute towards the training of teachers, and that's also what we do. So I think, yes, it's just finding, a mutual platform that's win-win for both, and figuring out how you can do this in the most efficient and the most effective way. And I think we've had quite a lot of success with that.
Okay.
On the PPP, the public-private partnership within the education sector, if you look at the frameworks that exist in the country at the moment, we have the PPP Act, and what it talks of are modalities like the build, operate, transfer. In the education sector at the moment in this country, we have already experienced it, especially at the university education level, where a private entrepreneur will put up a hostel, operate the hostel by maybe charging, the accommodation, and then after some time it is transferred to the university. And for example, the Nairobi Expressway that has been put up, it's on the same modality, build, operate, and transfer. In the basic education level, yes, there are countries where a partner will come, put up schools, maybe charge fees for some time, and then transfer the facility to government after some years. In Kenya, in the basic level, we have not experienced that. But maybe the partnership the colleagues are talking about here is arrangements where government is funding the private schools, because at the moment we are partners. For example, it is governments that regulates the private schools. The governments are pursuing the national curriculum. I mean, the private sector is pursuing the national curriculum. We send the school inspectors or quality assurance to support the private schools at times to ensure that the schools are also safe for implementation of the curriculum. But maybe what our private sector now is talking of in terms of supporting financially the private schools, I think that will require policy shift, because at the moment the government is wholly supporting the public schools. And another thing is that education generally is a public good. It's never left in the hands of the private sector in all the countries. Many parents maybe that can financially afford opt for the private schools, a number of them, but generally it is government that supplies education. We still have many out-of-school children in this country, mainly in our northern countries, the ASAL countries. We're estimating the last annual statistical booklet we released has a total of around 1.8 million children who are still out of school. Mainly among the nomadic communities, children may be moving with their families who are maybe looking after animals and that kind of thing. We also have pockets of poverty within the country where children in slums are also facing challenge as a result of the indirect cost of education. Maybe the child has problems at home in terms of food, in terms of uniform. Those are still challenges that we are still grappling with as a sector. Thank you very much.
Let me just get to, because you've spoken about cost, and the private sector is here again. Who is supposed, and you'll also weigh in on that. Mr. Munene, take it up, because the first issue, one of the matters you realize with the private sector as far as education is concerned, is that the cost varies so far and so different. Because, so who exactly is supposed, where is the regulator? Who says that at grade 7 you cannot pay past 70,000 shillings a term or 20,000 shillings a term? So who is the regulator, and where is government also coming in? And DG will also weigh in on that. But Mr. Munene and Mr. Haemba as well as Nula, you'll also speak on why such a big variance in as far as the cost of education within the private sector is concerned. Ama ni venye niko nyumba ya mtu, unajua? So nobody really, you're in my house, so you get to play by my rules. Munene.
Thank you. I believe the quality of education that we offer to our runners surpasses the cost. I think you can be able to compare them. And I want to agree with the DG that there is a need to relook at that matter. I know he has talked about the PPP being enhanced at the university level, not clearly drawn very well at the basic education, and that brings us the issue of cost. Also, I believe, as you have said, we can do a policy, it requires a policy shift, look at the policy framework. Because the PPP Act, even if we look into it collectively and have a conversation together as stakeholders and ask ourselves, what is the best for our Kenyan children? Whether they are going to public schools or private schools, they are Kenyan children. And if we create an incentive that can enhance more quality and access to education to our Kenyan children, both in public and private schools, I think as a country we will be able to create and produce graduates that are also competitive globally. Because there are those children who can only access that private school nearby, and the public school is maybe 30 kilometers away. So when we provide this incentive through the PPP framework, it means that more of these facilities are going to be made available to our runners, to our children in Kenya, and also the cost will go down to the education sector. And of course also, you look at the public financing on education in terms of capitation, the teachers that we employ in the Teacher Service Commission, all those runners that are in private schools, if today they are in public schools, it means the government will be spending more money on salaries, on capitation, and that would also compromise on the quality of education access. So I think it is always fair, on the very minimum, if we can be able to look at that issue of funding afresh and say, where do we gain, all of us? We can gain, all of us, whether it is public or private, by doing 1, 2, 3. And that is why we are saying, especially if we think about creating a revolving fund, and this is not free money, it's more that we borrow, we repay. We increase facilities, we improve our quality of education, we increase access, and on the other hand, public institutions will also improve because they'll be led with manageable numbers, and that will improve quality. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Haimba, just weighing on that, as DG also you speak to us on, this money issue is becoming a very big and hot topic, because I watch the news, or at least I report on the news. On one side, the minister and perhaps even your PS says education is free. I go to school and the headmaster or the principal there says there is 23,000 that needs to be paid, yes, boarding and tuition fees and what have you. So where am I? So am I supposed to pay school fees, or is it free?
Thank you. I think it's a good question, and Kenyans have been asking this question quite often. But before that, I wanted just to comment on the private schools and the fees they charge. First of all, our private schools, the ones, because we register them as a ministry, we regulate them in terms of ensuring that the rights of children within the learning environment is respected, and so many other issues. Our private schools are at different levels. We have private schools in the rural area that are charging 2,000 shillings per month. We equally have those that are charging 200,000, 300,000 per term. So many a times, even us in the ministry were told, why don't you ask these private schools to reduce the fees? But I just want to say that the private sector, in terms of fees, is regulated by the market forces. Because recently when we had the COVID, we saw mass exodus of children from the private to the public. Because families have lost, maybe employment and that kind of, the public schools that are free. And I will tell you why they are free. So not all also parents that have their children in private schools are rich. Many of them actually, they want the best for their child. And you see they are struggling to ensure that they pay the fees. Because at the end of it, parents, they say they exist and they work because of their children. And that they're making an effort to ensure that their children get good education, because they believe in a number of private schools, the class size, 20, 30 students. In our public schools, the class size is 50, 40 there. So coming back to the public schools as to whether they're really free or not, I just want to say that when you're working out the unit cost of education, it is the teaching and the learning, the tuition aspect of it. And therefore, what the government made free is the tuition. But if your child is in a boarding school, boarding has element of accommodation, meals, and So globally, when you are calculating the unit cost of education, you calculate for the costs that go to teaching and learning. And indeed, that we've made it free. Take, for example, our day schools. Our day secondary schools in this country are 70% of the secondary public schools. And indeed, they are free. In fact, some schools charge the lunch fees. That lunch fees, as a ministry, we keep on saying, the government says, it is optional. Some parents, some children can decide not to take the lunch. Others can come with packed lunch from home. So for our day schools, they are completely free. Teachers are sent by government. Textbooks are given by government. So anything that goes with the teaching and learning, including the payment of the electricity fees, the electricity charges, water, issues to do with even payment for some of the workers, the security staff, the staff that is helping the teachers in terms of tuition issues, they are paid for government. And therefore, education in this country is free at the basic level. But if your child is in a boarding school, it's a choice. As a parent, you have taken the child to a boarding school. And even without education anyway, the child will still be feeding somewhere at home. If the child was not in school, the child will still be feeding. So the feeding cost, we just ask you to transfer it to the school. Thank you.
Haimba, you are also just about to say something, and I can also see Nuala right next to me is nodding while jotting down notes. So let's just hear your sentiments on the same matter.
Yeah, just very quick thoughts on the cost and the fees charged by private schools. And Brian, you pointed out correctly, there are different levels. This should be allowed and is expected, because different schools have different offerings for their kids. There are private schools that, for example, will attract kids who want to go to universities in UK, kids who want to go to universities in Australia without finance. And so their mode of training and what they are offering aligns with the requirements of those global institutions, and then they charge the fees accordingly. So this is good for the country. And then, you know, because there are those parents who can afford those schools, there are those parents who can't, then the government comes in through the public schools. And I think this is not even unique to Kenya. So to try and kind of regulate that will also compromise quality and so on. So as a country, you need that mix. I just mentioned that I had a tour of some of the schools in UK. Actually, the best schools in Germany, they're public schools, because the government has invested hugely, and I think the ministry has been speaking to the German and collaborating with them. Because of their level of development, the government put so much of resources in public schools. They are more attractive than the private ones.
But Mr. Hemba, just the statistics that I just read at the start indicate that education and security is the biggest receiver of funding in the national government. Are you perhaps pointing an accusing finger to say government and other key stakeholders, just to say, is it that it's not being done in a proper manner? What really do you think from where you sit should be done?
Far from it, because I mean, I have been in public schools the longest. I have spent 23 years at Alliance High School.
DG is so ready. Every time I touch government, DG, I'm a shot to put.
So the point I think to finish on that one, DG, is that not to mention some of the schools, but many of them are here. You are right in saying they complement the government. There are certain offerings they will be offering to the citizens that probably will not come out, and we will require that. There's global community here. We host UN. They will want to take their kids to Aga Khan, Mombasa, or which is the most expensive, probably ISK or Rift Valley Academy.
There's another one I see some place in Rift Valley where parents land their children in.
Yes, and that was touring. And they have those clients. And that mix, when these kids come back to the country and they join efforts, despite the different path they took, is good for the country.
Okay, did you kindly allow me, let's just listen to Nuala, because she's been waiting for the whole line. Let's just listen to what she has to say, and then you can take it up. Okay, I will accommodate you, and we will be sure to thank PS for giving us you, because you have really taken care of his interests. Let's just hear from Luna.
Okay, the simple answer is quality education is expensive. So we say at the Academy that we develop learners who are locally effective but globally competitive. We secure about $14 million in scholarships in the top class universities around the world. And the question is, how do we get our children to that level where we're competing with all these other students from other top class schools around the world? So we have to maintain world-class facilities. We have to offer quality education which has a very high level of academic rigor. We have to offer all those enrichment clubs that allows a student to explore all their different talents and master all that different talents, and that is expensive. We are a non-profit school, so all the money we make goes back into the school. Probably about 60% of our expenses are spent on human resource because you need good teachers. And a lot of the times, because we can't pay as much as perhaps the Middle East or Asia can pay, we lose a lot of our good teachers to these other countries. So we invest also in professional development of our teachers, and all this costs money. So yes, if you want good quality education, it costs a lot of money, and that's where all the government money, I'm assuming, is going, is to raise levels of education. I mean, they're implementing a new curriculum. There's a lot of resource, there's a lot of professional development to be invested in, and that doesn't come cheap. So that's why private schools are expensive, I guess.
DJ, just to get your sentiments, and I will be even requesting that my videographer, Mr. Nyongesa, does accommodate that I take a few questions from the audience. Just in case you're joining us, this is the second Private Schools Expo and Conference. We are coming to you live from the Sarit Center, the Expo Center. We are here today and we will be here also tomorrow. This amazing initiative has been brought to you by The Nation Media Group. Be sure to continue interacting with us on Facebook, Twitter, that's X now, Instagram, and our social media platforms at Brian_Mushiri, which is my personal handle, and at NTV Kenya for our engagement. The hashtag that we are using for this time round is Private Schools Expo 2023. We are currently tackling the funding discussion and the financial discussion and the financial burden that parents go through when it comes to education. I am throwing it to the Director General of the Basic Education, that's Dr. Elias Abdi, also to give us his take on government.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know that our public schools, because when it comes to primary, we have around 24,000 public primary schools with almost an enrollment of, now primary schools are reducing to, 6 years. So initially, when they were up to standard 8, we had 8.9 million learners in our primary schools. But now the number comes to roughly around 6 million. Public secondary schools are 9,100. So in terms of, are our public schools the best in terms of within the national level? I would say our public schools, generally not all of them might not be having a swimming pool. We may not have, public schools that are having a state-of-the-art facility. But look at it. Recently, the KCP was released. Our schools from the private sector, almost 90% of the children from the private primary schools, 90% will end up in public secondary schools. When it comes to secondary schools, for example, in terms of public secondary schools, they are the best, better than even the private schools. That is, the reality of the matter. Look at it. At times, when we are so much inward looking, we may not see issues. But this country participates also at the basic level on assessments. For example, recently we had this SACMEC, the Southern and Eastern African Consortium for Monitoring Education Quality, where 15 sub-Saharan African countries participate at grade 6. Kenya was number 2, ahead of even countries like South Africa. We were just second to Mauritius, which is just an island country, 1.2 million people, as our primary school children alone are 8 million. Now, our 15-year-olds will participate for the first time in 2025 in PISA. This is an assessment, within the OECD countries. Will be, countries in the Western world and so on, 15-year-olds from 2 levels. So, regionally, we are doing well. Our secondary schools are one of the best within the region. And so, I would say that our schools and, regionally and even globally, our graduates are competing effectively. Because we have teachers, you go to, for example, within the East African community, we have Kenyan teachers all over. And it is their preferred, choice in other countries. Thank you.
Allow me now at this point to just get to hear from the audience. Perhaps I could take two questions from the audience. Do we have anyone in the audience who has a quick question? Yes, let me take a question here. And also, actually, let me make this great announcement. So, a super shout out to Mount Sinai CMI School, which actually I schooled at. And they're actually part of this great initiative. So, Mr. Nyongesa, kindly give me the provision to just pass this mic around to be able to get this one or two questions from the audience right here. Kindly start with your name and then just be brief.
Thank you, Brian. My name is Moses Wandera from Mount Sinai CMI, that is in Syokimau. My question I will direct it to DG, and perhaps just to start from where you stopped. We are getting very good students from private schools, and these students end up joining public secondary schools. From what I've heard, that means our public secondary schools are doing much more better than the private secondary schools. I'm not saying they are not doing well, but in comparison, most of the public secondary schools are doing better. Then now my question is, which kind of investment is the government putting in secondary schools that it's not putting in the primary public schools? Where do we get that gap? Then my second question, as I appreciate, one thing I like with CBC is the assessment model. That is the internal assessments, 40%, and then the final assessment, 60%. Maybe just to get your views, and you've mentioned something to do with the foundation, where we are having a student who is able to read, write, and arithmetic. Now, we are having the lower grades, these learners being taken through all the skills, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and possibly in a junior school. But I find some gap when it comes to grade 6, where this learner, I don't know the modalities that were reached at such that, one, the learner is not tested in the writing, and this writing proceeds in grade 7. So what happened in between? Maybe if I can get your views on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have like 7 minutes to go to be on air, so allow me to take the last question as we prepare for the final remarks from everyone. Just kindly make your way to the front because of my videographer. Yes, get the mic there.
Thank you. My name is Mr. I'm Mr. Wilfred Mapula from High School. My question then goes back to Daktari Abdi. 2 questions in one. I speak on behalf maybe of Osho Nana, Isiolo, Sakuru, Ajib. What are your comments on quality and quality of the CBC?
Kindly use this mic.
Sorry, I pardon. My name is Mr. Wilfred Wafula from the High Peak Schools. Daktari, I ask the question on behalf of those marginalized areas. To mention few, Marsabit, Wajir, Samburu, Isiolo, West Pokot, and Gorohosho. What are your comments on equality and quality and equity of CBC in the areas as the private sector flexes their muscles in terms of financial? Number 2, we have only a year to transit into the senior school. We have the issue of pathways and tracks. What is the government position on the transition? Capacity building of the teachers, because I know that the only cohort that is empowered for CBC are doing the 2nd year or 3rd year in the universities. Those that are outside now did not go through the pedagogies of CBC. I need your comments, sir.
Thank you very much, DG. Very briefly, looks like everyone is taking your direction. It's expected.
Thank you very much.
To represent government. Very briefly.
I'll start with the last question, the transition to senior. I will just reply by saying that already we have guidelines in place. We have the basic education curriculum framework, but within the first half or the first quarter of the next academic year, which is starting on 8th of January, the ministry will have released a guideline on how to operationalize senior school, just the way we have released the guideline for junior school. So the details as to how the curriculum will be implemented, will release the guideline to guide the schools, the boards, the head teachers, and the principals. So that I will leave it at that. The second question on equity and inclusion, when we talk of equity in this country and inclusion, we talk of for different parameters. For example, the issue of gender, boys and girls learning. We look at the disability thing. Those with disability, hearing impairment, visual impaired, there are 11 disabilities. The policy is there. There is special needs education policy. We also look at regional disparity, the way our brother there has mentioned. But all I want to say is that to cater for equity and inclusion in both access and in learning, because sometimes even in learning, when the teacher is standing in front of the class, equity issues come up, because is the teacher teaching only the girls or the boys and so on? Is he teaching only the fast learners or the slow learners and average learners, or is he teaching the whole class? These things come, but the ministry has always had some support to regions in the country. Mainly we categorize them into the ASALs and the pocket of poverty. Pocket of poverty, every other county has a pocket of poverty. Here in Nairobi, we talk of the urban informal settlements. In the northern counties, we have always come up with programs that target those children. Some of them being the boarding schools for the nomadic community, the aspect of the, ASAL grants. We have grants that is targeting those areas. We have the mobile schools, a number of interventions. And luckily now the county government has come up with bursaries. There are scholarships, the Jomo Kenyatta Foundation, the Wings to Fly, the Elimu Scholarship. We have a number of interventions that is targeting those areas. So coming back to my brother here, in terms of public schools maybe not doing well at the primary school level, maybe we need to, if you look at, for example, the KCPE data, you will realize that if you analyze, because at the end of it, when we get the data from Canada.
Find your child's best fit private school at the second edition of the Private School Education Fair, happening on December 2nd and 3rd at Sarit Expo Center. This prestigious event brings together schools, parents, students, and stakeholders for an exchange of profound ideas, best practices, and collaborative opportunities. Our mission is to create a dynamic platform for information dissemination, highlighting the importance of quality.
Performance selection will be released, and we use, merit. We use equity issues in settling for or giving space to our former students. So I think that again is something which is debatable, because many schools meet the 250 mark and above. Our public primary schools, many, they may not have. I told you, the schools in the village may not have the state-of-the-art facility. But all I just want to say is that the teachers are really struggling. They are working hard. And you might find the entire budget, most of it, almost 70% of the budget we're talking about that is going to the education sector is going as salaries to these teachers. 70%. It's only maybe 30% that is going to issues to do with capitation, O&M operations, and, and all that. So generally, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, DG. There is a man who usually directs me in my ear. He's really screaming at my ear. Ladies and gentlemen, we really need to go off air on NTV, but just to give each and every one of my panelists, and because also the Teen Republic show is coming up, and one of my colleagues who we like to say ni mtu ya muziki ya kutingisha kichwa. Jose the Trend is also in the building. I see him in the background. He's also going to be joining me on stage. Jose, I hope you have one track that the Director General can dance to. He's been roasted on this platform all morning, so have one track that he can dance to. However, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen of my panel, just to get very, like 30 seconds kindly for, as we go off air on NTV as your final remark. But we do go on NTV Kenya's Facebook page. So, Nula, let me just start with you. 30 seconds at least of your final remark. Then we continue on Facebook, please.
Okay, since this whole talk has been really centered around CBC, I just want to say, if we believe that children are curious, if we believe that children can construct their own meaning and understanding through the learning process, let's persevere with the CBC because the IB works.
Mr. Hayamba, 30 seconds kindly.
Yes, empowering for the future. I think is critical for schools to again focus on innovation, leadership, and entrepreneurship modules integrated in the curriculum. This is what other progressive countries are doing.
Okay.
And I think we really need to...
Mr. Munene, please, 10 seconds as now we wind up, please.
Thank you. Let's all join together and focus on nurturing the potential in our runners and look at areas where we can collaborate to improve quality of education, both in public schools and private schools. Let's focus on the Kenyan child. Thank you.
Thank
DG,
you.
finally, please.
This being an expo and a conference for the private schools, we just want to assure our private schools that we are working with them, supporting them, and we encourage the opening of more private schools. But all we just want to request our private schools is to ensure they abide by the guidelines of registration of the schools and ensure that the schools are a safe place for our learners. And ours is just to support you and work with you on behalf of the Minister of Education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Kindly a round of applause for my panel. Just in case you are joining us, don't go too far. Just join us on Facebook at NTV Kenya. This great conversation on the second private Schools Expo and Conference goes on. And this period and this time round, we are empowering future leaders for this country because education has been a matter of great concern, as showcased by what government has done financially for this great institution. At this point in time, because it's around 11:54 a.m., on NTV we have Teen Republic, and my dear colleague, who I hope has something for the Director General in the Ministry of Education, to at least bump into Jose the Trends, joins me. At least you can tell the difference clearly. I handle the more serious discussions. Jose?
Yeah. All right. Lots of people. Mko poa? Mko freshi? You know, let's loosen up a little bit. It's the weekend, and I'm very excited to see such conversations going on. Unajua sisi young people tunapenda serious discussions, alafu hii side ingine tunapiga miondoko, si ndio? So my name is Joseph Trends on social media at Joseph Trends. I host Teen Republic on NTV alongside Brian Moshiri right here. So Moshiri, unasemaje?
Wacha nifunge ule
mwenye. Funga tuendelee na
ule mwenye anatudirecting anaitangwa Jontes, by the way. Big shout out to Johnny, the director. He gets to shout in our ear and tells us what to do like we are children. Jonte, a big shout out to you. This is the second edition. A round of applause for this great conversation. My name is Brian Moshiri. See you on the other side on NTV Kenya and Facebook as we take up Teen Republic. Cheers.
All right. So in case you're joining us right now, my name is Joseph Maina, Joseph Trends. Leo tunapiga show differently a little bit, you know. Panelists wako pale, Brian Moshiri mfanya ile kitu. I'm pretty excited, pretty super pumped up. You know, jua kidogo leo our show tunaileta live on location to Sarit Center. All matters, you know, young people, leadership, and you know, there's an amazing expo on private schools. You guys better pull up, come here to Chapiana to join Yaja. Use the hashtag Teen Republic NTV across all social media platforms, and then tutakuwa tukichukua in a little bit. Moshiri atakuwa anatupeleka on the ones and twos kidogo tu. So right now we're going to pay a couple of bills, right?
Kabisa, wacha tulipe ma bill Jose. Yes. Jontes bana, umepiga kila kufunga. Asante sana. Shukran sana mazee.
All right.
Find your child's best fit private school at the second edition of the Private School Education Fair, happening on December 2nd and 3rd at Sarit Expo Center. This prestigious event brings together schools, parents, students, and stakeholders for an exchange of profound ideas, best practices, and collaborative opportunities. Our mission is to create a dynamic platform for information dissemination, highlighting the importance of quality education. Join us under the theme Empowering Future Leaders. Let's build a future where education empowers leaders.